This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutastrophe welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, February 22nd, 1980. You really think I was going to forget about this moment on February 22nd, 1980? Miracle on Ice? Yeah, right. So anyway, the Miracle on Ice happened between the Soviets and the United States during the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. Surprised that Lake Placid, a small city, a small place like that, could host the Olympics and all that without much population and all that. A lot of people said that Lake Placid got the 1980 Winter Olympics because everyone forgets that in 1976 Denver was given the Winter Games, but they voted on a referendum and they didn't want public funds supporting it. So they basically said no, thank you. And then Innsbruck was given the chance to host the 76 Winter Games, and then they put one in the United States, somewhere where it would be appreciated, and that'd be the United States. You know, it was a big match between the United States and the Soviet Union in the final round robin competition and all that. This moment was huge because the Soviets would have like professional amateurs, if you will, and the United States were basically all amateurs and all that. With only 4 players with minimal minor hockey experience, the United States was the youngest team in the tournament. So basically, the Soviet and American teams were 2 very different teams. The Soviets squashed almost everybody and all that. After their embarrassing bronze in Squaw Valley, they won 4 straight hockey gold medals, 27, 1-1 even. That was amazing. The Soviets hadn't lost a game in the Olympics since 1968, so basically they went through 72 and 76 and all that. However, the Soviets were basically led by pro amateurs, if you will. Boris Mikhailov, Vladislav Tretiak, Valery Harmonov, Slava Fetisov, Vladimir Krutov, and Sergei Makarov. And some of them played in the 1972 7 Series against Canada. So basically, obviously, they couldn't beat like amateurs and all that. The Canadians were not happy with the IOC's policy, and the Soviets basically flaunting it. Herb Brooks held tryouts in Colorado Springs in '79. Of the 20 players who made the final Olympic roster, Buzz Schneider was the only one returning from the '76 team in Innsbruck. 9 of those players had played under Brooks at the University of Minnesota, and 4 more were from Boston University. Boston University and Minnesota basically were perennial rivals in college hockey. Basically, it gave a psychological test, Herb Brooks did. The average age was 21 and all that. Brooks knew the limits of every player. However, there was an issue. The Soviets and Americans were not just fighting for hockey. It was just for political reasons. The Soviets refused to pull their tanks away from Afghanistan and all that. And Jimmy Carter was thinking about a boycott of the 1980 Summer Olympics. He kind of did. He said the boycott would happen. Of course, it would be too late to allow the Soviets to ban the Soviets from the 1980 Winter Games because, you know, logistics, and basically the Soviets would be suing them. So anyway, the Soviets were huge. They crushed the NHL All-Stars 6-0 to win the Challenge Cup. And club teams were in 5-3-1 against NHL teams. And all that. Basically, the U.S. Olympic team would have a lot of underdog status. Most of the top North American players were Canadians, although U.S.-born professionals would rise throughout the 70s. The Americans would play 61 exhibition games in 5 months, and Brooks instilled a European-style play in his team, emphasizing wide-open play with sufficient body contact. It was the only way for the Americans to compete with the Soviets. Basically, he conducted the team through sprints and all that. Brooks told the team after a 3-3 tie in Norway to skate the sprints after the game. And they continued in the dark. And that's when somebody, I can't remember who, basically lashed at Brooks and all that. But Brooks was happy because someone was willing to lash out at him and prove that they're not sissies. So anyway, they would play an exhibition with the Soviets on February 9th and were crushed 10-3. Jack O'Callahan pulled a ligament in his knee, but he returned in the game against the Soviets, even though that he should have been replaced. So here comes Olympic group play happened this way. As I take a look at the thing, so the rule was that of the six teams in each of the two pools, the top two would go into the final round, and a third place team went to consolation round. Why, I don't know, but it was to determine fifth place. So anyway, in the blue division, Sweden and the United States both tied with 9 points to win trip to the final pool. The Czechs would be third, which shockingly enough. Romania, West Germany, and Norway would basically have no chance. In the red division, the Soviets and Finns won. Canada, I believe, lost to Finland because if goal differential counted, Canada would have been in the final four, not Finland. The Soviets were perfect. Poland, Holland, and Nihon, or Japan, to you and I, basically were second. Canada lost 4-3 to Finland on a late goal by Suraremi. So basically, Canada choked, and the Czechs would beat Canada for that. So basically, there was a pool. So basically, then they were moved to pool play. So the Americans played Sweden. They pulled Jim Craig for an extra attacker, and Buzz Schneider scored a key goal to make it 2-2. So that tie happened. And then they shocked the Czechs 7-3. The Americans beat Norway 5-1, Romania 7-2, and Germany 4-2 to go 4-1 and advance to the medal group alongside Sweden. The Soviets were undefeated. They crushed Japan 16-0. Holland 17-4, Poland 8-1, Finland 4-2, and Canada 6-4 to easily move on. So basically, ABC had a thing. They wanted the U.S.-Soviet game to be rescheduled from 5 to 8 p.m. because they wanted it live in prime time. However, the IIHF said no because the Soviets said that it would cause the game to be moved to 4 a.m. Moscow time. As a result, ABC decided not to broadcast the game live for the U.S. audience, and they made it on a tape delay during its primetime coverage. Before the game aired, Jay McKay openly stated that the game had already occurred, but that they had promised not to spoil the results. In order to accommodate coverage of the men's slalom competition, which the Americans, I think, had something, portions of the game were also edited for time. The ABC actually made the 8 to 8:30 time slot devoted to the animated special, The Pink Panther in Olympics. Did they really need to do this and all that? I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So lots of people actually said that the game was live instead of being on tape delay. Lake Placid's arena was packed, 8,500 fans and all that. Brooks would try to tell his statements. Told us the great moments and all that. You're born to be a player. You were meant to be here. This moment is yours. Well, the United States fell flat, being down 1-0 on a Cutastrophe slapshot goal at 9:12. However, Buzz Schneider put a 50-foot shot from the left boards to put it in a tying game. Sergei Makarov would make it 2-1 Soviets. However, Dave Christian, in the last seconds of the first period, fired a slapshot on Tretiak from 100 feet away. Tretiak saved the shot but misplayed the rebound, and it bounced to Mark Johnson, who made it 2-2. Tikhonov was upset by that, so he decided to replace Tretiak with Vladimir Mishkin, the backup goalie. Tikhonov said that this was the worst moment of my career. And years later, when Mark Johnson asked Slava Fetisov, who was a teammate for the Devils, about the move, Fetisov only said, "Coach crazy." Michigan did pretty good for himself. The second period was dominated by the Soviets, outshooting them 12-2, and they scored the only goal. Alexander Baltsov. Krutov was then sent off for high sticking, and the Americans had a rare opportunity with the power play. Mark Johnson got the puck and fired a shot that went under Michigan to tie the game at 3. A few shifts later, Mark Pavlich gave Captain Mikey Ruzioni the shot, and he scored, making it 4-3. The Americans were at 4-3. However, the Soviets would attack ferociously. Brooks kept repeating to his players, "Play your game, play your game." Instead of playing defense, the United States went on offense, getting a few more shots on goal. And the Soviets were panicking in the fact. The Americans thought that Tikhonov was going to do the old tradition of pulling the goalie for a 6th attacker. But Michigan stayed. And the Soviets said, "We never did 6-on-5 because Tikhonov never believed in it." Petrov and Harlamov had a chance. So it was amazing and all that. The Americans finally got out of the zone with 7 seconds left. And Al Michaels said, "11 seconds. You've got 10 seconds. The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Silk. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles?" Yes! Unbelievable. Ken Dryden was the color commentator for that game. I like that. So, man, Al Michaels doing ABC game, a hockey game. Anyway, as his team ran all over the ice in celebration, Herb Brooks cried in the locker room. Players had a chorus of "God Bless America" and all that. And ABC Sports anchor Jim McKay compared the American victory over the Soviets to a group of Canadian college football players defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey! Pathetic. But here's the thing, though. Lots of people thought that was for the gold medal. Sadly, no, because the U.S., Soviets, Finland, and Sweden were all in the medal round, if you will, for pool play. They played each other. However, the United States didn't have to play Sweden, and Finland didn't have to play the Soviets because they both played each other. So they took those results, Russia beating Finland and U.S. tying Sweden, and basically that's how they started the pool play. All that. Under Olympic rules at that time, the group game for the United States against Sweden was counted with the medal against it. They had to beat the Soviets and Finland. It was actually mathematical that the United States could have even taken 3rd place. The U.S. was losing 2-1 to Finland, but Brooks turned to his players and basically says, "If you lose this game, you'll take it to your fucking graves." He walked towards the locker room, paused, looked over his shoulder, and said, "Your fucking graves." But the Americans came back to win 4-2. This was amazing. Players wanted to be on the podium to receive the medals and then lined up on the ice for the playing national anthem. But the podium was supposed to have only one person, the captain, and all that. All that. Sports Illustrated's famous cover of March 1980 only had the American players celebrating waving American flag. No captions or headlines. Because as the photographer said, "I didn't need it. Everyone in America knew what happened." The U.S. hockey team would be the Sportsman of the Year for 1980 for Sports Illustrated, and would win Athlete of the Year by the AP and Wide World Sports. ESPN said that basically the American Ice was the greatest moment in their 25-year history at that time, ESPN from 79 to 84. After the 1980 Olympics, the Americans would face the Soviets in Edmonton at the 81 Canada Cup, but sadly the Soviets would win 4-1. The Americans would try again in the 82 World Championships in Finland, but lost to the Soviets 8-4. Of the 20 players in the United States on the U.S. squad, 13 played in the NHL. 5 of them played 500 games plus, and 3 of them played 1,000 games. One of the most high prolific ones, Neil Broaden, who would play one more year for the Golden Gophers before going to the NHL and basically being a legend for the Minnesota/Dallas franchise and all that. He was traded midway through the 95 season to New Jersey, where he won the Stanley Cup with the Devils in 95. Broaden won the NCAA title in 79 at University of Minnesota with Herb Brooks, thus combined with the Olympic gold medal and the Cup win, as Neil Broaden would actually face Slava Fetisov as opponent. Slava Fetisov was a Red Wing, not a Devil at that time. He made him the first player in the history of the sport to win a championship at the collegiate, professional, and Olympic levels. And Dallas has his number 7 retired for good reason. Ken Morrill jumped in from the Olympics straight to the New York Islanders lineup for the 1980 playoffs, and he won the Stanley Cup in 1980, alongside 81, 82, and 83. And even though the Islanders didn't win the Cup in 84, Morrill scored a famous overtime game-winning goal to sink the New York Rangers in the final game of their first-round matchup. Mike Ramsey played in over 1,000 games. He spent 14 years with the Buffalo Sabres, becoming one of the best Buffalo Sabres of all time in the 1980s. He would actually play in the Stanley Cup Finals in 95 with the Red Wings, but his team was swept by Broaden and the Devils. Dave Christian spent 14 years in the NHL. A lot of it was for Winnipeg, the original Winnipeg Jets, who moved to Phoenix in the 90s, and Washington. He went to the Stanley Cup Finals with Boston in 1990, but sadly, though, the Oilers got them. He did pretty well, 783 points in his career. Mark Johnson would play for several teams in the NHL, but would find a major home with the New Jersey Devils and all that. Like Christian Ramsey and Broaden, he was an NHL All-Star, and he was the captain of the Hartford Whalers. Mark Johnson became the coach of the women's team for University of Wisconsin, leading them to 5 national championships, which is amazing. 06, 07, 09, 11, and 19. Jack Callahan played 390 NHL games for Chicago, New Jersey. Mark Pavlich played 355 games for the Rangers, North Stars, and San Jose Sharks. Dave Silk would play 249 games for the Bruins, Jets, Red Wings, and Rangers. Jim Craig only played in 30 NHL games for the Flames, Bruins, and North Stars. Mikey Ruziani didn't play any high-level hockey after the 80 Olympics, saying that he basically accomplished all his hockey goals with the gold medal. So he became a TV analyst. Craig Patrick, who was Brooks' assistant coach and assistant general manager, managed and coached both New York and Pittsburgh and all that. He won 2 Stanley Cups as GM. Herb Brooks would coach a lot of teams from the Olympics with mixed results. He was part of the French team. He was coach of the French team in 1998 when they went to the Olympics. Brooks was part of the USA squad, was the head coach of the US squad in 2002 when they would go on to silver against Canada. Spoiler alert, there will be that game will probably be covered in the future on this day. Unfortunately, Herb Brooks would die in a car crash in 2003 at the age of 66. Al Michaels was the only one who got the job as being the ice hockey play-by-play guy because he was the only member of ABC's broadcasting team who actually called the sport. He did that in Sapporo at the 72 Winter Games. He was named Sportscaster of the Year in 1980. Basically, Michaels would spend 26 more years doing stuff for ABC before moving to NBC to call Sunday Night Football. The Soviets were angry. Tikhonov singled out Tretiak, Harlamov, Petrov, and Mikhailov, who were supposed to be the leaders, and said, "This is your loss." The Soviets crushed Sweden and took silver. The Soviet players were so upset they didn't turn in their silver medals to get their names inscribed on them. Russia would still be a preeminent power in Olympic hockey until the Soviet Union broke up for real in 1991. The Soviets didn't lose a World Championship game until 1985 and would not lose to the U.S. again until 1991. NHL teams still tried to get Soviet players to entice them to play in North America. But the Soviets kind of wouldn't budge. They only allowed Viktor Nechayev and Sergei Pryakin to join. But then the Soviet authorities basically said that with the Soviet Union crumbling, basically they decided to do something about that. The Soviets allowed 6 Olympians from the 1980 squad Helmut Spartaris, Slava Fetisov, Alex Kasatonov, Vladimir Krutov, Sergei Makarov, and Sergei Starikov to join NHL teams, but only after they agreed to play in the World Championships, the United World Championships, and they did. Makarov ended up winning the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year, and that's when they decided to lower the age on that role. Fetisov was a teammate of Mike Ramsey on the 95 Red Wings team that lost the Stanley Cup final. Neil brought in the Devils. However, Fetisov would win 2 Stanley Cups with the Red Wings. The U.S. and Soviets didn't meet in the 84 Winter Olympics, but in 1988, they met. The Soviets ended up winning 7-5 in a tight one. The Americans ended up 7th in the 88 Olympics. And then they would bump each other in the Olympics in the semifinals in 92. The successor to the Soviet Union, the CIS, or Commonwealth of Independent States, if you will, won 5-2. The unified team still had many fans for the Russian league, and the Americans were primarily represented by college players, of course. The Americans would lose the bronze medal, whereas the Russians would win gold. The United States and Russia bumped into each other twice in the 2002 Winter Games. In the round robin, they tied 2-2, which was shocking. And then the Americans pulled a stunner in the semifinals against the Russians to go to the gold medal game. And the semifinal was played 22 years to the day of the Miracle on Ice thing. Of course, tune in a couple days to hear about the 2002 Winter Olympics in hockey, and it would be huge. The U.S. and Russia would actually face each other in a famous round-robin game in 2014 in Sochi, which basically was delivered by the shootout. And T.J. Oshie was the hero. The Americans would end up finishing 4th, and the Russians were 5th. There was a made-for-TV movie called Miracle on Ice that starred Carl Malden as Brooks, and Jim Craig was played by Steve Guttenberg. It was on ABC in 1981 and incorporated actual game footage and original commentary from the Winter Games. Weird. There would be other documentaries and all that. The movie Miracle came out in 2004. I'm proud to say I have that on DVD, and I can't believe it. Al Michaels had to recreate his commentary for most of the games. The final 10 seconds and the Do You Believe in Miracles yes call was for the original broadcast because Al Michaels couldn't recreate that emotion and all that. What people forget about that game as well is that, well, I know it's kind of stupid and all that, but another key element was another show that took it to fine print. It was American Dad. I know that show sucks, but they had an episode in which Stan is upset that Steve chose Legolas from Lord of the Rings as his hero. And Stan reveals his heroes are the 1980 Miracle on Ice team, basically saying that I was a teenager in the middle class cul-de-sac, and I made something of myself. Huh. Weird. But anyway, he's actually appalled that Roger the Alien says he was once a member of that team, with chef named Jack Levereau, and many members of the 1980 U.S. Olympic team actually recognized Roger and all that. Well, not as the alien, but as the player. And basically, he goes out of town for a reunion. And they shows Roger's face plastered on stuff with the Soviets and the Americans. Sadly, though, most of it is actually fake because the pictures are not from 1980. Anyway, Roger used steroids, and basically Stan feels that the Americans should give their gold medal back and all that. Roger wants his gold medal back from Stan. But in the end, the IOC didn't really care about it because Reagan knew about the steroids. And of course, that, it's the Winter Olympics. Basically, the American Ice keeps the lights on in the building. Of course, that's all false, but it still makes you think. Anyway, Miracle on Ice is fantastic. Even though I'm Canadian, it still is an iconic moment in sports history. I'm Jeff Diamond. Ado.